things to ask about, things I'm trying to figure out. First one is an old Heath Kit 2-meter radio that I've been trying to figure out how to set the PL tone on. I haven't been able to find any help on the internet. The manual says it can be done, but it doesn't tell how. It involves opening it up. So, if you know anybody, or if you know anything about Heath Kits, please see it. Yeah. And then CB radio that I understand people have been able to modify to do 10-meter. Hammer down. Oh, this is a Maxon. I just picked this up at a ham fest. Another thing I picked up at a ham fest, this says it's a sleeve dipole, 2-meter. So I'm not sure what advantages a sleeve dipole would have.
Is that the split 300 ohm stuff? I don't see any.
It looks just like one stretch of wire. It's just well, gosh, it's like multiple. It looks like maybe a 8X into something thicker, and it breaks out into this other. That may be just a hang-it. That may not be electrical. I don't know what that is. So. Who's our antenna expert?
I would say hook that up to an antenna analyzer and see what it is.
Another Hamfest grab is this is an old Micronta. It says range power modulation SWR tester.
CB base, probably good for about 150 watts. Probably push it too much more than 150 watts. And generally do the upper frequencies, maybe down to 20 with some accuracy. Once you get below that, your accuracy will drop off. Because the parts that are in it is more based for 10, 11 years.
Okay, so this is for CB radios that it was designed for.
That's what it was originally put out. A lot of hams used it. I used it for a long time.
Yeah.
I didn't have one that fancy. I had a single string, but I used it for a long time. And the Micronta was an offshoot of Radio Shack. Yeah.
Okay. And then finally, this box over here, this plastic box, that's stuff that I'm giving away.
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. You'll need this. You'll need that eventually.
Yeah, I've got stuff.
I got a half dozen of them, but those are well worth picking up.
Yeah, so how about
Chris, don't let that get away from you.
anything you grab there is less than if I have to take to the thrift store.
I've done that a lot too. I've taken that off, hooked up a handheld run in the car, external antenna. It's really worth it.
Keep the CB as a CB, and you start modifying it and everything else, you're gonna run into problems with the FCC. It's like compliant.
Thank you for that.
Just get a 10-meter radio.
Well, what's the difference in building a 10-meter radio and modifying a CB? Your ham, your license, your responsible. You follow the rules, you're okay.
The CD radio, I used to know a couple of guys, but if you get one of the old side-bin CBs, then yeah, you can change those. And basically the changes that I understood, never did it myself, but were a couple of the pots around the transmitter had to be changed. The receive generally was wide enough it would pick up anything, but you needed to change and readjust those transmit pots in order to get on frequency. other than that, that's about what I know. I had a VFO. That's,
For your 2-meter antenna, I would just hang that up in a free space and put an antenna analyzer on it. See what it reads on 2 meters and see if it's got a 70 centimeter portion. I have a little antenna like that, it works great. Takes my HD up to another level. It's a far better antenna than anything you can hold connected to the body of the transmitter. Try and test it and see.
if you had two of them, you make good intercrops. Did that too.
I don't know if you've seen this before, but I brought my remote set up here. Some people are aware that I can remote into a local repeater here, even from thousands of miles away. And basically the concept is, watch it. This box right here takes the microphone, the speaker, and the control head for the radio and runs it across the internet. And there's a box like this plugged into my radio that puts the signals in the right place, and so I have complete control over the radio. This is a pretty complex control head on the 2000 because it's got 2 receivers and memory and all kinds of stuff that you can control. But this Wi-Fi is talking to the internet. You can also use the Ethernet cable, and this has been more interesting than most people have seen. Lithium iron phosphate battery, pretty lightweight, very capable, stores charge for a long time, very intelligent battery, won't let you run it down below the threshold of pain, and it's lightweight, so, and it's supposed to last a long time.
Did you open
Yeah, good. It's not too much to see. The case, this is the actual battery here. In the case I got it PowerWorks. And basically it's set up, it'll handle 40 amps for a while. And this top portion up here has a USB, cigarette lighter, and a circuit breaker and a voltmeter. This is switched here, and then these terminals and these terminals have direct access to the battery, so they can do the 40 amps, and it's fused. But this power pole, 2 power pole, and then these are screw terminals here, banana plugs. So
What kind of battery is it?
it's a lithium iron phosphate, Biolini,
Yeah.
50 amp hour in this one.
Nice. So you've got this hooked to a radio. Is your radio all included right there in that head?
Yeah.
That's the radio itself.
Matter of fact, they sell versions of the TS2000 that don't even have a control panel. They just have a plate over the front. They call it TS2000B, and you control it with this plugged into the radio. Unfortunately, they don't make these anymore.
So is this controlling your radio at home?
Yes,
Through the internet?
and I can control the radio in Arkansas or Colorado by changing the address that we go to across the internet.
And how do you change your radios? Through your computer or through the system?
Well, I have to tell this box what the address is.
And how do you tell it that?
I can do it with the computer, get on the same network. Or there's a procedure you go through if you very carefully turn this control knob when you turn it on.
So that'd be the way you talk to it.
Well, no, I just haven't learned to do it. But I've got those profiles stored in there, and if I adjust it right when it's coming up, I theoretically could pick the right one, but I haven't learned to do that.
So is that what you used when you came in on Echolink from Hawaii?
No, that was really Echolink. I just had an iPad. I didn't take all this to Hawaii. Even this was more than I wanted to put in my luggage. So I just took a small iPad. Matter of fact, it's this guy right here. So the box underneath there, that's for radio control, or is it just a Well, in my mind,
network?
it converts the signals for speaker, microphone, and control head to send it through the internet. And then the box on the other end decouples that and sends it to them. But really, to switch my radio at home over to use this, I just changed two things. Unscrew the mic connector, plug in one that goes to the box, and unplug the speaker and plug in the one that goes to the box. And
So you just use Wi-Fi for that box?
it can go either way. Right now I'm using Wi-Fi, but I could use Ethernet. The Wi-Fi was an option. It didn't come with it. No extra charge. The box is made by Remote Rig, some guys in Sweden, and the only U.S. distributor is HRO.
So
But they-
that's remote rig is?
Yeah.
That's remote rig. Have you ever noticed any hellacious latency using?
Oh yeah. Sometimes the internet's so bad that the voice is choppy and terrible. I've got the buffer and the latency lengthened out is pretty long on this one to kind of cover for some of that. So there's a little bit of latency. When it's working good, it works really good. But that's the internet.
So that's the control head for the headless radio. Are you controlling one that's a regular radio with that?
Yeah, it turns out that the radio with a head, you can plug it into the back of it and they'll both operate at the same time.
That's what I've done. Just gotta go find that.
Well, they don't sell them.
Find them something.
Yeah.
Does you have to marry up to your radios?
Just plug it in.
Just plug it in? Okay, on some radios, like control heads are serial to the unit. On remote, like some people have them on inner cars, the remote head, some of the heads you can't. You use the head and
They're mated, they're paired.
yeah, they're paired.
Yeah. No, this will control any TS2000.
Okay.
There's some unique things like when I bought this kit, it came with this adapter, which is very important because it's got a RJ45 coupling to the mic and stuff like that. I tried to set it up on a 706 and that cable is so small. I had a professional cable maker make me a cable. I never could get it to work. And I got a cable from somebody else and I never could get that one to work. So it theoretically would work with a 706, but I haven't been successful. Any questions? There you have it.
Because it's got a brand new screen on it. I loaded a new screen on a month or so ago. And the new screens for these generally allow you to do total touch between the screen and the Pi. We're used to, it wasn't touch screen, only 2 or 3 buttons. Now they're adding everything to the screen. We get up here. This one has a clock in it. And now then you can screen in to change talk groups. If you're on DMR, you can screen in, switch it to D-Star, change reflectors from the hotspot without having to work on the radio. So they're doing all kinds of things. You get in there, reboot, shut down, everything's available on the screen. Plus this one tells me the CPU cycles of the Pi, tells me the temperature of the Pi, shows the frequency. All of the little pieces are also being shown on the screen. Just takes a touch, but you have to convert the USB, and then I hardwired to the back side of the USB because all your USBs on there stick out. Okay, so I get to the inside and I hardwired these 4 wires to the back side of USB 1 so that everything works that way, and then put in a TTL converter that runs out to the screen, and all that's inside the box. And a fan. I want to keep it cool. So that's my small one.
What does this do? What does it do?
It's the DMR hotspot.
Oh, it's a demon. You said it right first.
Yeah, you're on the wrong side. You couldn't see all
I was
that.
seeing all you're a fan.
Yeah, you see me work it over here, but, yeah, okay. See, I can change from DMR to D-Star.
Since
or
Chip
Fusion.
isn't here, I have to say it's cute.
And you can change reflectors, you can do whatever, touching the right buttons.
Yeah, that's really tiny.
And then when you get really, just hit the reboot button. It'll start over again or shut down.
Oh, that's just it.
So now it's in a reboot cycle and it'll come back up
That's pretty cool.
from the screen. Now you can program the radio to do the same thing, reboot and shut down, but you can't program the radio to do all of the other pieces.
And that's Raspberry Pi screen is
Yeah,
standard?
it's-
It's a
it's a-
standard thing?
It's a next-gen screen, and this one's 2.4. They come from 2.4, 2.8, 3.2, 3.5, whatever size you want. In my Go box, I had 3.2s, a pair of them. And I brought the 7-inch before. I've got a 7-inch next-gen screen hooked up to a Pi, same one. And it'll work, the Fusion, it'll work, whatever. As long as you get them on the right frequency.
It's nice.
How do you spell next year? How do you, the screen letters to,
Do what?
how do you spell the manufacturer of the screen, the brand of the screen?
Yeah. The screen is Nextion, N-E-X-T-I-O.
Take
IT, you look up IT, they're the company that, if you want to go direct. I bought some from Amazon, I've gotten some from eBay, that come from China. You gotta be careful on those to make sure that they're not the Chinese knockoff JSCs. It has to be the Nextion in order to work with the Raspberry Pi. Or, if the JSC will work with the Pi, but you have to know Chinese to program it.
Okay.
That's the only real problem.
And the software that it's running.
Yeah, there's software that you learn, that you get, and I didn't program it, but I got, that you program the screen with. And then there's Pi-Star that you put into the Raspberry Pi. And it knows how, it sends certain things to the screen. And now the screen knows all of the variables that are coming, and it can ask for this one or that one, change what variables it got. Used to, it just took what it got and you could put a few things up. But they're making the screens now where you can do just about anything. And this one now has a clock. It sits on my desk because I like the clock. I'm waiting for the guy that wrote that program to convert it to a 7-inch, so I can put it on my 7-inch. Then I'll have a real clock on the desk. But he's still dinking with it, adding alarms and adding, that screen, you can have an alarm clock, you can have it actually from the GPIOs. The alarm clock will set off whatever you have hooked up off the GPIO. So all that's into the Pi software, but the screen will do it for you. 1 second.
Was that a commercial case?
Hmm?
Was that a commercial case?
No, I bought the Pi, I bought the box. I ordered a TTL converter, did all the wiring myself. Like I said, I had to tear the TTL converter apart, take the USB thing off, and then run the wires off the card to get to the USB on the Pi. And then I loaded the software, which is free, Pi-Star software. And then I found the screen software, loaded the screen so that it does this. And then I added a fan to keep it cool, and then figured out how to cram it all in that little box.
Tight squeeze.
Do what?
Questions for Rick?
Anything else?
Thank you.
And I've got a cheap version. This is what they used to be. When they came out on a Pi Zero, and it's got a LCD, well, it's got an OLED screen, and it only does 2 or 3 things. That's what it started out, and now I've moved up to these. So I'm kind of getting carried away. And I got too damn many of these. This one's for sale.
A friend of mine who's in Minnesota, someone's on the air, was in the area visiting, and he's also hooked on satellites. And so we went up on Mount Hermon, and he pulled out his cell phone and said, "Oh, there's a satellite coming up. I'm going to go, chase the satellite." Well, the satellite, it was a low orbit to the west. I think the highest it got was like 15 degrees. But because we're up on Mount Hermon, you can add a few more degrees to that because you can see down below the horizon, so to speak. And anyway, bottom line is, he worked 2 satellite passes while we were up there. And also, we got on HF and activated the people from on CW. Yeah, I guess it was mostly CW. But he also was saying that he's on SOTA because there's some chasers that like to work through the satellite. And the satellite is actually considered, even though it's technically a repeater, it does count in terms of points. So anyway, that got me interested, and I had an arrow beam, actually a 3-element EHF beam, and so I started drilling holes in it because holding this antenna up for a long period of time. The window that the satellite is in the sky that's usable is about anywhere from 6 minutes to 12 minutes, and then the pass is gone. So I was going to drill out my boom. I had a 3-element. The boom breaks in half so that you can pack it and unscrew all the elements and put it in the pack. That antenna weighed about 2 pounds. Every pound you put in your pack, including your lunch and water, like today it was a 4 water bottle day. It was hot out there. And I took tripped my deer strap that goes underneath my boot, hooked to a root or something, and I took a face plant. Fortunately, my arms stopped in time, but my sunglasses went up against my face, anyway. So I started drilling the boom on the other antenna I had, and I accidentally drilled one of these large holes through one of the holes where the element screwed in. And that was unretrievable as far as being able to go back, and I'd have to fill the hole or put a plug in there or something so that these elements can screw it into the right place, because all the spacing is calculated out. It has to be accurate. So I went to Home Depot, got some 3/4 inch, and made what I call an arrow shorty, or mini arrow. What I like about this antenna is it's about 19 inches, so that when you take the elements off, it all packs down to the size of the boom. In other words, the elements aren't any longer than the boom, so I can just strap this all together. I leave the UHF elements attached, then I just strap it to the back of my pack, and it's lightweight, and I can take it with me, and I can use it on a peak for EHF and UHF for SOTA, and I make contacts that I wouldn't be able to make just using my HT because of the improved gain. So I sort of got interested in satellites, but the amazing thing is that they're so popular right now that you can hardly get a word in edgewise. And to demonstrate that, this case has, the hole is, too small. And the connector won't fit in over there. Yeah. There we go, okay. So, sorry. So the pass comes up on the horizon, and everybody's trying to hit it, and there's no squelch. So, and the advantage of that is that well, first off, the satellite is going 17,000 miles per hour, hurling through space. It's tumbling, and these satellites are about 7 inches square, and they've got solar panels on all 6 sides. Their antenna is typically a quarter-wave whip. Uplink is on one side, and the downlink is on the other side. A lot of them transmit on uplink on 450 and or 70 centimeters, and their downlink is on 2 meters. So typical pass for a weekend, and the operators, the use of the satellite is not for just rag chewing. It's the operators are chasing grid squares, and they're talking like as fast as you can talk, because the satellite pops over the horizon, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you're in loss of signal. And there's rovers that drive around the country to get into different grid squares, or they'll sit on the corner of 4 grid squares. And so, just to give you, I hope the audio plays for this. Does this?
I think it will.
Okay, try it.
8092 pass.
And that's what I'm twisting, trying to get the phase of the antenna, because it's totally. So you get a taste of what it's like, and it sounds like an FAA controller or an auctioneer. Knowing when to talk or try and get on is half the battle, and the other half is having enough signal that somebody's not going to step on you. And the rule of thumb is to use the lowest power possible. because it sags the satellite down when somebody jumps on with a lot of power, and it also causes some distortion. Some of the in this particular satellite that I'm playing with right now, or group of satellites, there must be 100 ham radio satellites out there.
AO92 pass.
Not yet. So what I've discovered is that doing it early morning or off hours, it's a whole different ballgame. And there's typically not a lot of people that show up, and you can actually make a contact and exchange greetings. And so here's an example of 5:30 a.m. Satellite pass. This is SO50, which is a Saudi satellite. It's a science experiments as well as ham radio. It's an FM repeater, so to speak. There's been a lot of activities with universities hooking up with ham radio, and it's a good marriage because the scientific experiments that the students are doing generate data. Well, I got to get that data back down to Earth so you can do something with it. And ham radio, I mean, radio amateurs are experts at communicating and putting electronics together. So it's because it's a university, they get a special price on putting that box up in space, and we sort of get to ride along with their coattails.
WG0UT, Delta Mike 79. Yeah, Whiskey Golf 0, Alpha Tango. Good morning, Christy. Whiskey Golf 0, Alpha Tango, Delta Mike 79. Maybe tomorrow. 73.
Yep, don't spend much time.
What did she ask?
Even sodas.
Oh, yeah.
They know I'm a soda. Anyway. So, any questions? Jim?
So I started using AO92 and SO50, whatever satellites that you found. And is this all mode FM, or are you also doing some sideband?
I plan to do some sideband and CW.
Okay. But which satellites are you using besides these two?
AO 91, 92, and SO50. And there's other low orbit, they call them LEOs, satellites that are in various states of usability. There's the designator of one of the satellites. They call it the zombie satellite because its battery expired 5 years ago, but all of a sudden it came back to life. And it's only good for daylight passes.
During the past, will one station become all of a sudden the station and everybody trying to contact it?
That K0FFY, he was sitting on 4 grid squares. And so working him, you wound up getting 4 grid squares, and that's why he was one of the rovers and everybody was chasing him. And they tend to announce their intentions on Twitter, and there's a whole gaggle of people that follow all these, chasers and rovers, and you can kind of keep up with what's going on, who's going to be on which grid tomorrow. And some of these guys spend their whole summer driving around the nation, activating all these different grid squares and camping, in between. It's kind of funny. It's kind of fun, actually.
How much weight did you remove off the antenna?
A pound. Wow. So this thing now is basically right at a pound.
And you took all the hardware off the old antenna and put it on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I just basically got a new piece of, made a new boom.
Yeah.
And I used the measurements and directly traced them from the old one.
So there was just a lot of extra boom on there then.
Well, yeah, and it was all solid. And it was thicker wall aluminum than what I've got now. I lost a few dB as far as, not having a director. I just have a reflector now and the driven element. And also I lost 2 elements on 450. But the satellite is only putting out 250 milliwatts. And it's got a fairly sensitive receiver, as you can hear. But it's also tumbling in space. And so I'm constantly, doing this, trying to keep the max signal, so to speak. And I put what can I say? The past information I put on my cell phone and put the cell phone in this little holder because I'm holding my HT. I need 3 hands. The other issue is the satellite, because it's going through space, you have a Doppler shift effect. So I have to program 5 channels, and every 2 minutes I switch from one channel to the next. Or when the signal sounds real fuzzy, then I switch it to the next channel, which is 15 kilohertz away. And then all of a sudden it's good quality audio.
What is your food made of?
Aluminum.
What is the hardware? Buy the hardware?
Yeah. Yeah. I did the Russian satellite, I don't know, 30 years ago, went around 10 meters. And the satellites, what they call linear satellites, that actually transpond like 20 kilohertz of a band to 20 kilohertz of the uplink to 20 hertz of the downlink. They're called linear satellites. Those are the ones you can do sideband and CWR. The trick is finding yourself. The Doppler shift. I don't know, it's just such an interesting aspect. No. It's really, with pretty much any HT, I don't have a special, I have a Yaesu FT2. Matter of fact, my friend, he was using the Bofang. Ideally, you want to be able to hear yourself. In the Kenwood, I think it's a D7200, or no, 72D. Has a duplexer in it, so it'll transmit and receive at the same time. The advantage of that is you can hear yourself and know if you're getting stepped on. So that you don't have to waste any time holding the mic button down, saying your call sign and grid square, and then nothing at the end of it. Then when he comes back to you, you go, what's up? Is my antenna working, or my battery is down, or who knows?
Yeah, my question was, do you know if anybody's done any experimentation with the satellites, talking to those using circularly polarized antennas? Because that kind of helps a little bit with dealing with some of that tumbling. Because they're satellites, I know they use a spin stabilization, so that's part of the reason you're getting that fading.
I'm sure there is. I mean, I've seen some articles on circular polarized antennas, but I think they're mostly the base stations that are doing that. What I was interested in basically was being able to do it on the mountaintop, and also the portability aspect of it.
And what power are you transmitting at? What power?
Oh, 5 watts.
5 watts.
I mean, the low orbit satellite, FM satellites, and I'll post a PDF that describes frequencies and whatnot. Actually, you can find it on amsat.org. I think it's .org. But I'll post it to our TLM reflector. Those 3 satellites, you can actually work with an analog HT and rubber duck. Probably help having a gain antenna. You can hear them, and in some cases you could probably work. My goal now is to someday work an astronaut. I think that would be so cool. But they don't. The International Space Station, which is, you can track it, and they broadcast SSTV pictures every once in a while that you can decode with an app on your cell phone. And at one time they turned on the transponder, but it's not on all the time. And you can work through the space station, which would be kind of fun. But these low orbit satellites are 500 miles from our planet. Now, some of them are 300. And but when they pop over the horizon, in some cases they're like 2,000 miles from your location. And when you think about 5 watts, line of sight, we're lucky here on the planet, and what gets us is the curvature of the Earth. We're lucky if we can talk 100 miles, simplex with 5 watts. But I guess once RF leaves our atmosphere, it just keeps going. Because when you think about the fact that these satellites are only putting out 1/4 of a watt, and I can hear them almost full flighting once I get my antenna in on the right phase. It's pretty amazing. Ultimate line of sight communication with low power. Any other questions? They probably wonder what the heck is this crazy guy doing now out here at 5:30 in the morning, and it's not even sun up yet, and talking in this little radio, and a lot of static, and some other voices come back. Yeah.
Did you record the whole thing?
Yeah, that's the only way I can. And the expectation is that you use log of the world to put up your confirmation, so that everybody, and somebody created a map, 200 grid squares, and you can download your login to it, and it populates the map, the little grid square, with a call sign and the date I think, of when you worked it. And it'll give you how many states you've worked, how many squares you've worked. It's kind of the younger crowd and a bunch of software people and hackers and geeks, nerds that like to play with this kind of stuff. But I'm just kind of got the bug here. I'm playing with it and learning a lot about, all that metal that's flying around in space. But linear satellites is my next step. I've got one at TH-17, but ideally you need two of them to.
I was gonna say, if you're on a budget and you wanna do that for yourself thing, all you need is two power thing, one on the uplink frequency, one on the downlink. If you're on a real budget, so.
Yeah, and you can tell when somebody's got, they're just doing it the first time because all of a sudden you hear a squeal, and that's because their microphone is too close to the
Yeah, you need the
earphone.
downlink one in the air.
Yeah.
And just a reminder, wrap up if it's not in, take it home with you, put it in handy too.
So this is a Draws hotspot. It's a hat that goes on a Raspberry Pi. Some of the things that are unique about it, it's got two audio channels. Draws stands for Digital Radio Amateur Workstation. It's got two audio channels, so you can have two radios connected at the same time. And it's different modems, so you can have APRS or Direwolf doing WinLink or something on one radio, and then do FT8 or FLDigi or something on another radio. It's got GPS. This is a compact GPS antenna with an LNA. So that's mainly for your time, but also for your location. But your timing is critical on some of those digital modes. And it's got a buck converter, so you can run it on 12 volts. And then so you just plug in power poles, and then it puts exactly 5 amps on the Raspberry Pi's 10 out. And it's got a real-time clock for more time use. Right now I've just got it hooked up to a battery bank. I normally run it with this little Bluetooth keyboard, but I let it die. Is it still on?
Yeah.
So I ran a script by KM4ACK. It's got a really good YouTube channel, and that created a hotspot. So the Pi will automatically search for Wi-Fi networks it's used to hooking up to. If it doesn't find any, like I'm out in the field, then it'll create its own hotspot. So my phone can connect to that, and I normally do this on an Android tablet. And that's also dead at the moment. So we're connecting. Now we'll DNC into that, or you could SSH if you were on a laptop or something like that. This is a 3. So I'm an early adopter. I bought it Marchish, and so it's still all in beta testing. They still haven't released an alpha. So there you go. So the image that they give you, like I said, it's beta, so you still can't run an upgrade. It'll brick it. You'll have to reflash your card and everything like that. But it's got all the apps you would normally use for digital modes. Yak. The Yak and Zaster, those are some APRS plans that called DigiJS8, WSJTX. Let's see how terrible this is.
You have a link in there.
It's got Pat, yes. Yeah. So this is our output of the GPS. CGPS is one. But it'll give you a lot long. It'll automatically sync your time to the GPS. It'll give you a grid square, which is pretty neat. GPS monitoring. So that just, it's an easy way to streamline your system if you're into going outdoors and doing digital modes instead of having computer analog signal link and GPS module and all that. So it just makes it a little more compact. Yeah, there's a, I forget how to get into it, but there's a draws manager. So the audio channels are these 6-pin mini-pin connectors. And so you can make your own cables if your radio doesn't have that, or you can just hook straight up like my 857. My 857 and 8800 both have that connector, so you can just plug right into it.
So that's your phone, your VMC to your.
Right. And I normally do this on a tablet because it would just be painful to try to see it on the phone.
So what modes and things do you do radio keyboard, or you?
It's like keyboard to keyboard digital modes. So Janus 8's a good one. You can do a lot of conversations with that. You can also do APRS through it. It's not an FTP now. But and then FT8, which everybody's familiar with, which is one of Joe Taylor's modes. And then the 2 APRS clients, and WinLink and everything like that. You'll, but it's not digital voice, it's digital keyboard.
Good.
Yeah.